The alien girl grabbed me and said, "If you love another, I'll end you." The long metal corridor of the space station was silent, only the hum of machines echoing in the distance. Human Officer Daniel had just finished his night patrol. He was tired, his mind lost in thought, when suddenly he felt a presence behind him. The air grew heavy, and his steps slowed. Before he could turn, a strong hand grabbed his arm and pushed him back against the cold steel wall, his breath caught in his chest. Standing in front of him was not a human, but her. The alien warrior girl with glowing silver eyes, eyes that seemed both furious and desperate. Her voice trembled, but her words carried sharp fire. "Don't you dare love anyone else." Daniel's heart skipped a beat. He had heard many strange things since joining the Interstellar Peace Force, but nothing like this. He stared at her, confused, shocked, unsure if she was threatening him or confessing something deeper. The girl's hand pressed against his chest. He could feel her strength, a power far beyond any human's. She wasn't tall like the monstrous aliens he had fought before. No, she was almost his height, her frame lithe but dangerous, every muscle ready to strike. But her eyes did not look like an enemy's. They looked like someone afraid of losing something precious. Daniel finally found his voice. "What are you talking about? Why me?" She didn't answer at first. Her chest rose and fell quickly, as if her own words had betrayed her. Then she whispered again, softer this time. "You don't understand, but you will." She stepped back slightly, yet her gaze never left his face. The corridor light glowed faintly across her pale skin and silver hair. There was a strange beauty to her, one that was almost painful to look at. Daniel remembered the rules. Humans were never supposed to form emotional bonds with alien warriors. The commanders called it dangerous, forbidden. They said alien emotions were unstable, wild, like fire in a storm. And yet here she was, breaking every law, every boundary, just to tell him not to love anyone else. His mind spun with questions. Who was she really? Why him? What made her so desperate that she would risk everything just to claim him with those words? But before he could speak again, she leaned closer, so close he could feel the heat of her breath. For a moment, time froze. The sound of the station, the hum of the walls, even the beating of his heart seemed to fade. "Listen to me, human," she said, her tone half command, half plea. "I have chosen you. Do not fight it." Daniel's hands trembled. He wanted to push her away, to call for backup, to follow his training. But something deep inside stopped him. There was no fear in her words, only raw truth, raw pain. He thought of the stories the crew whispered about her. They called her cursed, a warrior whose tribe had been destroyed, who carried scars deeper than anyone could see. Some said she was unstable, dangerous. Others pitied her, but none dared go near her, until now, until she came to him. The silence between them stretched. Daniel felt as though the walls of the station were closing in. He could not move, he could not breathe. Her hand finally released his chest, but her eyes burned into his soul as if she had branded him. Then, without warning, she turned and walked away. Her steps echoed through the corridor, sharp and quick, until she disappeared into the shadows. Daniel stood frozen against the wall, his heart still racing. He touched the place where her hand had pressed against him. It still felt warm. "What just happened?" he whispered to himself. He tried to steady his breathing, but his mind refused to calm. A part of him wanted to dismiss it as nothing, a strange encounter with an alien soldier. But another part, deep inside, whispered that this was only the beginning. The look in her eyes, the fire in her voice, the way she had claimed him as if he already belonged to her. None of it made sense, but all of it felt too real to ignore. He didn't know it yet, but that night, everything had changed. The rules, the warnings, the dangers, they no longer mattered. Because an alien girl had marked him, and her words would follow him into every shadow, every silence, every heartbeat. Don't you dare love anyone else. And for reasons he couldn't explain, Daniel knew her voice would haunt him forever. If you are enjoying this story and want more amazing HFY sci-fi tales, don't forget to gently subscribe to this channel. It really helps us bring you more powerful stories. Daniel could not sleep that night. He lay in his small quarters, staring at the ceiling while the memory of her words burned in his mind. Don't you dare love anyone else. It was insane. He had fought pirates, smugglers, even monstrous alien beasts on different planets. He had faced plasma fire, explosions, and death traps. But never before had he been shaken like this. Not by a weapon, not by an enemy, but by a single sentence from an alien girl. Her face, her eyes, her voice, they haunted him. Every time he closed his eyes, she appeared in front of him. Silver hair glowing like starlight, gaze burning like a storm. Why him? Why claim him? The next morning, Daniel walked through the mess hall. The other crew members laughed, joked, and ate their rations, but as he passed, he heard whispers. She was following him again last night. Dangerous. He better stay away. Do you think it's true that she likes him? Daniel clenched his fists. The rumors were spreading faster than he could stop them. He kept his head down and grabbed his tray, but he could feel eyes watching him from across the room. And when he dared to look up, she was there. Sitting alone in the corner, the alien girl watched him silently. Her posture straight, her expression unreadable. She didn't speak. She didn't move, but her gaze never left him. He quickly sat down, trying to focus on the food, but his appetite was gone. Every bite tasted like metal. Every heartbeat was heavier than the last. Later that day, he confronted her. He found her near the training chamber, where alien warriors practiced with plasma blades. Sparks danced in the air, the sound of steel and energy filling the wide hall. She stood by the edge, her eyes sharp, as if waiting for him. Why are you doing this? Daniel demanded, his voice low but steady. You corner me in the corridor. You say things that make no sense, and now everyone thinks. Before he could finish, she stepped forward, not fast, not threatening, but close enough that he felt the heat of her presence again. I warned you, she said softly. You belong to me. Do not let them take you away. Daniel's chest tightened. You don't own me. You can't just claim me like some prize. Her eyes narrowed. You think I see you as a prize? No. You are my choice. My bond. That word, bond, echoed in his head. He had heard it before. Among her people, the warriors were said to form something deeper than love, something unbreakable. Once bonded, they would never allow another to touch, to steal, or to harm the one they had chosen. It was more than obsession. It was life or death. Daniel shook his head. This is forbidden. The commander would— I don't care about your commander, she interrupted sharply. For the first time, her voice cracked, not with anger, but with desperation. Do you know what I lost? Do you know what it means for me to choose you? Her words struck him silent. He saw her fists tighten, her body trembling, not with rage, but with something fragile, something broken. The training hall fell into silence. Even the other warriors seemed to sense the storm, building between them. Daniel stepped closer, lowering his voice. Then tell me, why me? Her silver eyes glistened, as if she was fighting back something she didn't want him to see. For a moment, her walls broke. Because, she whispered, you looked at me like I was alive, when everyone else looked at me like I was already dead. The words cut deep. Daniel's breath caught. He had never imagined. Behind her strength, her fire, her pride, there was sorrow, loneliness, pain. Before he could answer, she turned sharply, walking away into the shadows of the chamber. But her last words lingered, soft yet unshakable. "You are mine, no one else." That night, Daniel sat alone in his quarters again, but this time his heart was heavier. He wanted to dismiss it all as madness, a dangerous game, but he couldn't. Because her confession had stirred something in him, a feeling he didn't want to name. Was it fear? Was it pity? Or was it the beginning of something he couldn't stop? Outside his window, the stars stretched endlessly across the black sky. And somewhere in that darkness, he knew she was out there, watching, waiting, fighting against a universe that wanted to keep them apart. And Daniel realized something terrifying. He wasn't sure if he wanted to resist her anymore. Daniel tried to bury himself in duty, but every time he walked the metal corridors of the station, every time he passed the training hall or the observation deck, he could feel her presence. Sometimes he caught her reflection in the glass. Sometimes he saw her shadow move before she stepped into the light. She was always there, watching, silent, waiting. The whispers among the crew grew louder. "Why him? She's cursed. If he's not careful, she'll destroy him." Daniel wanted to push it all away, to forget the burning silver eyes that haunted him. But the more he tried, the more the weight of her words pulled him back. Finally, one night, unable to bear the questions gnawing at his chest, Daniel went looking for her. He found her outside the station's hangar bay, where the stars stretched wide and cold beyond the reinforced glass. She stood alone, her armor cast aside, dressed in the simple black garments of her people. Without the weapons, without the mask of a warrior, she looked different, vulnerable. Daniel approached carefully. His voice was steady, but soft. "Why me?" he asked again. "Why are you doing this?" She didn't move. For a long moment, he thought she would ignore him. But then she spoke, her voice quiet and sharp, like the edge of broken glass. "You don't know what I've lost." Her hands tightened into fists. Her gaze remained locked on the stars, as if they carried the memories she couldn't let go. "My people had a bond," she continued. "Not just love, deeper, stronger. Once chosen, it could never be broken. We were warriors, but we were not empty. We lived for those bonds. We died for them." Daniel listened, his chest heavy. Her voice dropped lower. "I had one, long ago. He was strong, proud, but he was taken. My enemies killed him, and when they did, they laughed. They said I was cursed. They said my bond would never heal, that I would never feel alive again." She finally turned toward Daniel, her silver eyes burning, wet with rage and sorrow. "They were right. I was dead inside. For years I fought only to kill, not to live, until—" She stepped closer, his breath caught. "Until I saw you." Daniel's heart pounded. He wanted to look away, but her gaze held him like chains. "You looked at me differently," she whispered. "Not like the others, not like I was a monster or a weapon. You looked at me like I was still alive." The weight of her confession hit him harder than any weapon ever had. Daniel felt the air in his lungs vanish. He didn't know what to say, what to feel. The commanders had warned about this. Alien warriors who carried scars too deep, who might cling to humans in ways that defied reason. They called it danger. But standing here, seeing the truth in her eyes, Daniel realized it wasn't danger, it was desperation, it was survival. He swallowed hard. "And now you've chosen me." Her lips trembled, as if she didn't want to admit it, but she nodded. "Yes, I broke every law of my people. I broke every law of yours. But I don't care. I would rather burn the stars than lose another bond." Daniel's chest tightened. He felt torn apart between duty and something he couldn't name. "This is forbidden," he whispered. If the commander finds out, she cut him off with a sharp glare. Let him find out. Let them all find out. I don't care. The silence that followed was heavier than any words. He could hear the hum of the hangar's engines, the distant footsteps of patrolling guards. But here, in this moment, it was only them. She reached forward suddenly, her hand brushing against his wrist. Not forceful this time, not the powerful grip that had pinned him to the wall. This touch was different, gentle, almost trembling. "Don't you understand?" she whispered. "I cannot lose again. I will not." Daniel stood frozen. His mind screamed with warnings, rules, fear. But his heart whispered something else. For the first time, he didn't pull away. She looked at his silence, her expression breaking into something raw, something fragile. She leaned closer, close enough that her silver hair brushed against his shoulder. "You can hate me. You can fear me. But you cannot leave me." And before Daniel could answer, alarms suddenly blared through the station. Red lights flashed. A voice shouted over the intercom. "Warning! Enemy vessels detected. All units prepare for immediate combat." The girl's head snapped toward the sound, her eyes sharpened, her warrior self returning in an instant. She released his wrist and reached for her armor. But just before she turned to leave, she locked eyes with Daniel once more. "This is only the beginning," she said. "Remember that." Then she was gone, vanishing into the chaos, leaving Daniel standing alone with a sigh torn inside his chest. And for the first time, he wondered if he was afraid of her, or of the truth inside himself. The red sirens bathed the station in warning light. Every corridor throbbed with flashing crimson. Every alarm echoed like a heartbeat of doom. Soldiers scrambled into formation, weapons ready. The intercom screamed orders. "Enemy warships detected. All personnel to battle stations." Daniel ran with the others toward the defense wing. But unlike the rest, his thoughts weren't on the fight ahead. They were on her. The alien girl, the one who had cornered him, claimed him, confessed her haunted past. She was out there now, preparing for battle. She wasn't just another soldier. She was a storm. And Daniel feared what she would do if the battle pushed her too far. When he entered the armory, he found her already there, armor strapped across her frame, plasma spear in hand, silver hair tied back like a warrior queen. Her eyes burned, not with fear, but with fire. The others kept their distance. None dared to fight beside her. They whispered that she was cursed, that whoever stood near her would not survive. But when her gaze fell on Daniel, something changed. "You're with me," she said, her tone sharp as a blade. Daniel froze. "What?" "You heard me," she pressed. "You fight beside me. Always." The commander stormed in then, barking orders. "Form up! The enemy breached outer defenses. We hold them here." Nobody challenged her words, not even Daniel. Against his will, he felt his feet move beside her. She stood tall, ready, as if she had already decided his fate. Minutes later, the enemy struck. Explosions rattled the walls. The station shuddered under plasma fire. Shadows of alien raiders swarmed through the breach, weapons blazing. The battle erupted in chaos. Daniel fought hard, rifle kicking against his shoulder, every shot echoing through his bone. But even as he fought, he couldn't ignore her. She moved like lightning. Her spear cut through enemies with terrifying grace, every strike precise, every motion filled with deadly purpose. But it wasn't just the way she fought. It was the way she never left his side. Whenever an enemy flanked him, she struck them down. Whenever plasma fire aimed at him, she shielded him with her own body. At first, Daniel thought it was chance. But after the 10th time, after the way her body moved instinctively to cover his, he realized the truth. She wasn't protecting the crew. She wasn't protecting the station. She was protecting him. And only him. The battle raged on. Bodies fell. Smoke filled the air. The floor slick with blood, both human and alien. Daniel's muscles screamed. His breath burned. Yet no matter how exhausted he grew, she was always there, untouchable, unstoppable. At one point, Daniel was shoved to the ground by an enemy raider. The alien's blade raised high, ready to end him. Before Daniel could react, she was there. She slammed her spear through the attacker, pinning him to the wall with a scream of rage. Her chest heaved, her silver eyes wild, her lips pulled back in a snarl. She leaned down, grabbing Daniel's collar, pulling him up against her chest. "I told you," she hissed, her voice low but shaking. "You belong to me. No one takes you from me. Not them, not anyone." Daniel's heart pounded harder than the gunfire around them. He wanted to argue, to shout, to demand she stop. But the words never came, because in that moment she wasn't just a warrior. She wasn't just dangerous. She was something else entirely. She was terrified of losing him. The battle dragged on, wave after wave of enemies crashing against them. Finally, the order came. "Fall back. Regroup in Sector 3. Daniel stumbled with the retreating soldiers, but she refused to leave his side. When they reached safety behind sealed blast doors, the survivors collapsed, exhausted and bloodied. Daniel leaned against the wall, chest heaving, sweat dripping. She stood in front of him, untouched except for the blood of her enemies staining her armor. Her eyes locked onto him again, never blinking, never wavering. The commander barked out new orders, but Daniel barely heard them. Because she stepped closer, once again pressing him against the wall, just like that first night. Her voice was low, shaking with intensity. "Now you see. I will not let anyone take you. Not in battle, not in peace. You are mine." Daniel swallowed hard, his throat dry. "This isn't how it works. You can't just—" Her hand shot up, pressing over his mouth, silencing him, not in anger but in desperation. Her silver eyes glistened with something raw, almost broken. "You don't understand," she whispered. "I have already lost one bond. I cannot lose another. If I have to fight the entire galaxy, I will, but you will not leave me." For the first time, Daniel felt his chest tighten, not with fear, but with something he couldn't name, something that made him tremble inside. Because deep down, he knew. He didn't want to leave her either. Suddenly, the blast doors shook with another explosion. Sparks rained from the ceiling. The battle wasn't over. The commander shouted, "They've breached again! Everyone, prepare for second wave!" The soldiers scrambled, but Daniel stayed frozen, trapped between the chaos outside and the fire burning in her eyes. And when she reached for his hand this time, not with force, but with trembling need, he didn't pull away. The battle ended hours later. Smoke hung heavy in the air, corridors cracked with burns, and the dead were carried silently through the halls. The station had survived, but barely. Daniel sat in the infirmary with a bandage across his shoulder, staring blankly at the floor. His body was bruised, but it wasn't the pain that troubled him. It was her. The alien girl. She hadn't left his side once during the battle. Every time he looked over his shoulder, she was there, fighting like a storm, only to shield him. It wasn't just loyalty. It wasn't duty. It was something far more dangerous. And the others had noticed. "Hey," a medic whispered to another, glancing toward Daniel. "She wouldn't let anyone near him, like she'd kill us if we tried." "I saw it too," the other replied. "It's not normal. It's obsession. Command won't allow this. They'll separate them." Daniel clenched his fists. He wanted to shout that they were wrong, that she wasn't dangerous. But deep down, he knew they weren't completely wrong. Because when she entered the infirmary a moment later, silent and fierce, every soldier stepped back. She walked straight to Daniel, ignoring the whispers, ignoring the fear. She stopped in front of him, her silver eyes burning. "You are not hurt?" Daniel hesitated. "I'll live." She exhaled, almost like relief, before sitting beside him. Her hand hovered near his, trembling, as though she wanted to hold it, but feared he might pull away. The whispers grew louder. One soldier muttered, "She's cursed." Another hissed, "He's doomed if he stays near her." Daniel's jaw tightened. He wanted to defend her, but could he? She had saved his life more than once, yet she had also claimed him in front of everyone, as if his choices no longer mattered. That night, he lay awake again. Sleep was impossible. The station was quiet now, the battle scars fresh in every corridor. But inside his mind, a storm raged louder than the war outside. He remembered her words. "I had one bond before. He died. I will not lose again. You are mine. If I have to fight the galaxy, I will." He felt trapped between two worlds. On one side, duty, loyalty, the commander's rules, the warnings of his crew. On the other, her, raw, broken, desperate, but alive. What terrified him most wasn't her strength. It wasn't even her obsession. It was the small voice inside him that whispered he didn't want to let her go. The next day, the commander called him in. Daniel stood at attention, trying to hide the weight pressing down on his chest. "You've been seen with her," the commander said coldly. "You know the rules. Human soldiers do not bond with alien warriors. It is forbidden for good reason. They are unstable, dangerous. Once they choose, they never let go. Do you understand what that means?" Daniel's throat tightened. He remained silent. The commander leaned forward. "If you continue this, whatever it is, you put yourself and the entire crew at risk. She will choose you over orders, over the mission, over all of us, and that, officer, is unacceptable." Daniel saluted, hiding the storm in his chest, and left. But outside the office, she was waiting. Leaning against the wall, arms folded, silver eyes locked onto him, as though she already knew what had been said. "What did he tell you?" she asked. Daniel hesitated. "That this is forbidden." Her jaw clenched. For a moment her warrior mask cracked, revealing pain. Then her expression hardened again. She stepped close, so close he could feel the heat of her body against his. "I don't care about his rules. I don't care about their fear. I will never let you go." Her words shook him. He wanted to argue, to remind her that his life wasn't hers to claim, but his voice failed, because a part of him didn't want her to let go. That evening, Daniel walked alone through the observation deck. The stars stretched endless and silent outside the glass. He pressed a hand to the cold window, his mind spinning with everything that had happened. He had to choose. The commander was right. Staying near her could destroy him. She could drag him into her world of fire and blood, into a bond that would never let him escape. But leaving her... He remembered the look in her eyes when she spoke of her lost bond, the way her voice cracked with desperation, the way she fought, bled, and nearly died just to shield him. Leaving her felt impossible. Footsteps echoed behind him. He didn't need to turn to know who it was. She walked up quietly, her reflection joining his in the glass. For a long moment, neither spoke. Finally, Daniel whispered, "You scare me." Her silver eyes softened, but her voice was steady. "Good. Then you understand. Fear means you know I will never let you go." Daniel turned to her, heart racing. "Why me? Out of all the people here, why me?" She stepped closer until her forehead nearly touched his. "Because when I look at you, I feel alive again, and I would rather burn the stars than lose that." Her trembling hand reached for his. Daniel stared at it. His heart thundered, his mind screamed to pull away, but his hand didn't move. And when her fingers finally closed around his, Daniel knew the truth. The choice had already been made. The silence of the station didn't last long. Only 2 days after the first battle, the alarm screamed again, this time louder, sharper. The kind of alarm that told everyone this wasn't just another skirmish, this was annihilation. "Enemy fleet incoming. All units, prepare for full engagement." The corridors shook as plasma shells struck the outer shields. Soldiers ran through the halls, shouting, strapping on armor, loading weapons. The station vibrated under the power of the bombardment. Daniel was already at his post, rifle in hand, when he saw her. She stood in the center of the defense wing, armored and armed, her silver eyes burning with a fury unlike anything he'd seen before. She was no longer just a warrior. She was a storm made flesh. But when she saw him, her gaze softened, just for a heartbeat, as though reminding herself why she fought. She walked up to him. "Stay beside me." Daniel's throat tightened. "If I do, will you let anyone else live?" Her jaw clenched. "If they do not try to take you from me, yes." The station rocked again, explosions rattling the walls. There was no time to argue. Daniel nodded. "Then let's survive this." The enemy breached within minutes. Dozens of raiders stormed through the hangar bay, plasma blades and rifles blazing, the air filled with smoke, fire, and screams. Daniel fought hard, every muscle screaming with exhaustion. But once again, she was always there. Her spear cut through enemies with terrifying precision, her body moving like lightning, her voice echoing with war cries that shook the air. And always, her body stayed between him and danger. At first, Daniel resisted it. He tried to cover her, to shoot for her blind spots, but soon he realized she didn't have any. Every strike was perfect, every defense absolute, until it wasn't. The enemy brought in something new, a massive war beast, its body plated with armor, its jaws glowing with plasma energy. It crashed through the blast doors, throwing soldiers aside like toys. The room shook under its roar. For the first time, Daniel saw something in her eyes he had never seen before. Hesitation. She pushed him back against the wall, her spear raised. "Stay here." Daniel's heart pounded. "You can't fight that alone!" She didn't answer. She leapt forward, charging at the beast with a scream that cut through the chaos. Her spear slashed across its hide, sparks flying. The creature roared and slammed its massive tail, throwing her against the wall with bone-shaking force. Daniel shouted her name, his chest ripping with panic. She staggered back up, blood on her lips, her armor cracked. But instead of retreating, she charged again. The beast's jaws opened, glowing with plasma fire. Daniel's instincts screamed, if she didn't move now, she would die. And then it happened. The beast unleashed its blast. She threw herself in front of Daniel, taking the full force across her chest armor. The explosion shook the room, throwing them both to the ground. Daniel scrambled to her side, her armor smoked, cracked open, her breathing came in ragged gasps, and blood seeping through the cracks. Yet her hand clutched his wrist with iron strength. "You live," she whispered, silver eyes burning even through the pain. "You live, even if I die." Daniel's chest shattered. "Don't say that. You're not dying here." She coughed, but her lips curled in a faint smile. "This is what it means. Bond. I told you, I would fight the galaxy for you. I would die for you." Her grip trembled, weakening. For the first time, Daniel saw her not as unstoppable, not as terrifying, but as fragile, as someone who had carried too much pain, too much loss. And in that moment, the choice he had been avoiding crashed down on him like fire. He pressed his forehead to hers, his voice raw. "Then listen to me. If you die, I die too. Because I'm not leaving you. Not now. Not ever." Her silver eyes widened, tears cutting through the blood on her face. For the first time, her voice shook, not with rage, but with hope. "You mean it?" Daniel's voice was steady. "Yes, you're mine, as much as I am yours. And if you fall, I fall." Something inside her shifted then. Her trembling stopped, Her breathing steadied, her strength returned like a second fire. She rose, dragging herself to her feet, spear glowing with renewed fury. She turned to the beast, her voice a roar that shook the hall. "He is mine, and I will not let you take him." Daniel stood beside her, rifle raised. "Then let's finish this together." The battle that followed was chaos. She struck with fury beyond reason, every move fueled by the bond they had finally acknowledged. Daniel covered her, his shots precise, his heart no longer divided. Together, they brought the beast down. Her spear pierced its glowing core while Daniel's rifle cracked through its armor. The monster roared one last time before collapsing, shaking the station floor. Silence fell, broken only by the hiss of steam and the ragged breaths of survivors. She turned to Daniel, blood and fire staining her, but her silver eyes shining with a light that was no longer only desperation. It was something else, something unbreakable. She pressed her forehead to his again, whispering, "Now you understand. We are one." Daniel's chest burned, but for the first time he didn't resist. He whispered back, "Yes, one." The station lay in ruins. The halls that once shone with sterile white light now burned with black smoke and bloodstains. The war beast was dead. The enemy fleet scattered. But victory did not feel like triumph. It felt like survival. Daniel stood in the silence of the hangar bay, his uniform scorched, his hands trembling. Around him, medics moved quickly, tending to the wounded. Soldiers whispered, exchanging fearful glances, not about the enemy, but about what they had seen. They had seen her. The alien girl who fought like fire itself, who threw herself before death just to shield one human, who rose again when she should have fallen, screaming that he was hers. And now she stood at his side, silver eyes glowing, armor shattered, blood staining her pale skin. Yet her grip on her spear was steady, her presence undeniable. The commander stormed into the bay, his face twisted with fury. "What is this madness?" he roared, his eyes locked on Daniel. You've bonded with her, haven't you? Against every order, every law. Do you know what you've done?" Daniel's throat tightened. The weight of every rule, every warning, every whispered fear pressed down on him. He opened his mouth, but before he could answer, she stepped forward. "No," she said firmly, her voice cutting like a blade. "He did not bond with me. I bonded with him. It is my choice, my claim." The commander's face paled. "Do you realize what that means? Once bonded, she will never release you. Not in war, not in peace, not even in death." Daniel looked at her. She didn't flinch, didn't deny it. Instead, her hand reached for his, trembling slightly, but strong. And for the first time, Daniel didn't pull off why. He closed his fingers around hers, holding tight. He faced the commander, his voice steady despite the storm in his chest. "Then let it be so, because I choose her too." Gasps rippled through the soldiers, some muttered in shock, others in anger. But Daniel didn't care. For the first time, his heart felt certain. The commander's eyes darkened. "You've doomed yourself, officer. This bond will consume you. It will change you." Daniel's gaze sharpened. "Then let it change me. Better to be consumed by something real than to live a life half dead." Silence fell. No one dared to speak. The commander finally turned away with a curse, unwilling to waste more words. But the look in his eyes promised this was far from over. Later, in the quiet of the ruined observation deck, Daniel and the alien girl stood together, watching the stars burn beyond the glass. Her armor was gone, her wounds bandaged, her silver hair loose and wild around her face. For the first time since he met her, she looked calm, almost peaceful. "You should hate me," she said softly. "I trapped you. I forced this bond upon you. I swore I would never let you go." Daniel studied her, his chest heavy, Then he stepped closer, lifting her chin gently with his hand. You didn't trap me. You made me see what I was too blind to admit. I wanted to run, but I couldn't. Not from you, not from this. Her eyes glistened, her lips trembling. Even now, you choose me? Daniel nodded. Yes, even now, especially now. She leaned into him then, pressing her forehead against his, the same way warriors of her people sealed their eternal vow. He closed his eyes, feeling the heat of her breath, the pounding of her heart. For the first time, he whispered the words he had feared to say. You are mine, and I am yours. She gasped softly, her hands gripping his arms, as though afraid he would vanish. Then nothing can take us apart, not war, not death, not the galaxy itself. Daniel smiled faintly. Let them try. But even as they stood there, united in their forbidden bond, a shadow spread in the silence. From the corner of the deck, a figure stepped back into the darkness, unseen by them both. A communications officer, holding a small recording device, his eyes wide with dread. He had heard everything. He whispered into the comm, his voice shaking. Command was right. The bond is real. He's hers, and she's his. If they're not stopped, it won't just endanger the station. It could change everything. The signal carried into the void, to ears far beyond their reach. And so, while Daniel and the alien girl stood together, believing their bond had finally found peace, a greater storm was already building in the darkness of the stars. One that would test not only their love, but the fate of two species.